One of the cool things about the One by One initiative that's really unique is that we are going to be using a one fund approach. And what that means is that during the 2-year period of the One by One initiative, that all the funds that we normally designate to will be rolled into one fund. We're proposing that we resource our single vision with a single fund. And so we feel like there are 3 benefits to that. One is it will bring unity across our movement and throughout our congregation. Second, we feel like it's a very simple approach. Instead of having to worry about designations, everything goes to one fund. And third, we think it's something that everybody can participate in. The reason for that, if you take your commitment card, is on the inside, there is a giving pathway that talks about really the challenge for all of us to grow in faith and generosity by taking a next step in our giving journey. And so we encourage you to study that and consider where you are on this generosity pathway and what the next step will be for you. Today what I want to do is to explain how to fill out the commitment card that we've been talking about for a number of weeks. And I want to give a couple of illustrations, but let me first say that the most important thing about this card really is on the back side, where it encourages us to pray. I'm going to give you some illustrations. I don't want you to fill in the numbers that I'm going to give you. All of us need to pray and ask God what numbers He wants us to put on that card. Also want to encourage you to pray that Calvary will see $8.5 million raised up over the next 2 years. So let me give you a couple of scenarios. The first would be if I'm somebody who's newer to the whole giving thing here at Calvary. Maybe I'm a new Christian, maybe I'm just newer to the church, or I'm just sort of getting on board with the whole generosity thing. And so as I do that, the way my card might look would be in the first blank where it says what I normally give in a year, I would put a 0 because I don't normally give anything at this point. But as I've prayed and I've gotten excited about the One by One initiative, I've decided that I think I can free up $1,000 each year to give to the one fund. And so I would put that in the second blank where it says my expanded annual generosity for one fund. You add those 2 numbers together, you get a total of $1,000 multiplied by 2 years is $2,000. And then I come to the blank that says, a gift from my current stored resources. So what is that? One of the things we're doing with the One by One initiative is we're encouraging people to consider 3 areas of giving. One would be what we normally give to the church in a year to all the different funds. A second would be what our expanded annual generosity could be. But the third area is based on the idea that most of us have something that we already own that we probably could part with. In fact, most of us have something we own that we would love to part with and get out of the house. So in this scenario, as I think about that, I'm a big Penn State fan, and I realize that I have a Bill O'Brien bobblehead doll at home. I don't really need that anymore, and so I take that and I put it up on eBay together with my Believe t-shirt and my O'Brien's Lions coffee cup. And it turns out that there's some guy in Houston that's willing to pay $500 for the whole lot. And so I put $500 on that line where it says gift from my current stored resources. I add those together, I get a total of $2,500 as my 2-year one fund commitment. I move that over to the other side of the card, fill in my information, and in this case, I'll mark the box that says I am taking the first time step in my giving journey. Tear that card off, and that's what I will bring to turn in at Eisenhower Auditorium on May the 4th. Let me give you a different scenario. Let's say I'm somebody who's been around Calvary for a long time. My wife and I have been Christians for a while, and we're pretty committed to the mission and vision of the church. And so in a typical year, when we take into account what we give to the general fund, what we give to the missions fund, and our 1% offering, and we add all that together, for us in a normal year, we would give $10,000. And then my wife and I pray and consider what we might be able to expand annually, and we decide that we can expand by $5,000. We add those 2 numbers together, we get $15,000 multiplied by 2 years is $30,000. And then we stop and consider what current resources we might have. And as we're reflecting, we remember that about 20 years ago, we invested in a small startup company called Starbucks. And that stock has appreciated greatly. And we realized that we can give another $5,000. We can add that to our commitment for a grand total 2-year one fund commitment of $35,000. We transfer that across the page, fill in our information, and in this case, we are taking a bold step in our giving journey. And so we mark that on the card, tear it off, and we turn that in at Eisenhower on May the 4th. Now, a couple of the things that I want to encourage you to think about. One is at the bottom of the card, it gives instructions for electronic giving. And we really want to encourage electronic giving as a part of this campaign. It will really help us to be consistent in the flow of funds that go to the different initiatives. And if possible, we would love to have you give through your checking account, because more of your gift will reach ministry purposes when you do it through your checking account as opposed to a credit card. Second thing I want to remind you of are a couple of key dates coming up. Obviously, May 4th at Eisenhower Auditorium, we're going to come together as one church in one location to turn in our commitment cards. And then secondly, on the weekend of May 17th and 18th, we're calling that Big Give Weekend. And what that means is that's the weekend we're going to celebrate what God has done. We're going to announce the total of all the one fund commitments, and at the same time, we're going to ask people to bring their first gifts to the One by One initiative. So that might be a gift from your stored resources or just your first offering towards the one fund. And that's going to help us in a number of ways to really get things moving with our different initiatives. It's also going to help us save interest as we begin our projects. And so we're really looking forward to, we're praying for the biggest offering in the history of Calvary on that day.